My name is Elias Harper, and for the last 12 years I've been a park ranger at Crater Lake National Park. If you've ever stood on the rim at sunrise, you know what I mean when I say the water looks impossible, deep electric blue, like someone poured liquid sapphire into a volcano's throat and forgot to stir. 2,000 feet deep in places, clearest lake in North America, fed only by rain and snow. Tourists come from everywhere to snap photos, hike the trails, and rent kayaks in summer. They leave thinking they've seen nature at its purest. They're wrong. After dark, the lake changes. The blue turns black, thick and endless, and the silence gets heavy, like the caldera is holding its breath. I've watched the last light bleed off Wizard Island until it's just a shadow floating on ink. That's when the rules matter. Not the ones in the NPS handbook about bear spray or trail etiquette, the other ones. The ones old-timers whispered about in the mess hall. The ones Klamath elders still won't say out loud near the water. Survival rules, passed down ranger to ranger, because the ones who ignored them didn't get to pass anything down. Last October, we lost a hiker named Ryan Caldwell, 32, fit, solo backpacker from Seattle. He checked in at the lodge, said he wanted to catch the sunset from Discovery Point, parked his rental, walked the rim trail. A couple saw him around 7:15, sitting on a rock ledge, staring straight down at the water as the sky went purple. They waved, he waved back. They kept walking. When the lodge called his room at 10 o'clock because he hadn't returned his key, we started searching. Found his pack still zipped, water bottle half full, phone on silent with a dozen missed calls from his wife. No tracks leading away, just his boot prints stopping at the edge, like he stepped off into nothing. We pulled the lake for 3 days. Nothing. Divers said the water was too cold, too deep. Visibility dropped to 0 after 20 feet. Official report, probable drowning, accidental. But I was there when we found his jacket snagged on a submerged log 200 yards offshore. The fabric was dry. Not damp, dry. Like it had never been in the water at all. Crater Lake is the deepest, clearest lake in America. But after dark, it's not water you're looking at. It's something looking back. Break one rule and you don't come back. I've seen the proof. These aren't suggestions. They're the only thing standing between the people who work here and whatever's waiting below. And trust me, it waits. Patient, hungry, always. I didn't always believe the old stories. I had to learn the hard way, starting with why I transferred here after losing everything in the city. I spent 8 years with Portland PD, mostly homicide detail. Long nights, longer shifts, the kind of cases that follow you home and sit on your chest until you can't breathe right. My partner was Mike Torres, good cop, better friend. We'd worked together since patrol days. He had a wife, 2 kids, a laugh that could cut through any crime scene. Then one rainy October night on the east side, we rolled up on a domestic that turned into a barricade. Shots fired. Mike went through the door first because that's who he was. I was right behind him. One round caught him under the vest, just low enough. He was gone before the ambulance even turned the corner. I stayed on another year, telling myself I could keep going. But every call felt like walking back into that house. The smell of cordite, the wet pavement, Mike's blood on my hands. I started seeing his face in every victim, every suspect. Burnout hit like a freight train. The department offered counseling, light duty. I turned it all down and put in for a transfer. Anywhere quiet, Crater Lake came up on the list. Remote, beautiful, low crime. I thought I could disappear into the trees, do my job, heal. The NPS hired me as a seasonal ranger at first, then permanent after a year. I told myself it was peace. I was wrong. When I arrived in late spring, the lake was still thawing, that impossible blue just starting to show through the last ice. I checked into the ranger quarters at Rim Village, unpacked one duffel bag, and reported for orientation. The other rangers were polite but distant. They smiled, shook hands, then gave me the same look you give a new guy who doesn't know he's walking into a minefield. During the first briefing, someone mentioned the old man, a massive hemlock log that's floated on the surface for over a century. Locals say it never sinks, never drifts far from the center. I laughed it off as park legend. Then I saw it for myself on my first rim patrol. The log was there, motionless in the middle of the caldera, like it was anchored. No current should hold it that steady. I pointed it out to a senior ranger named Clara Voss. She just nodded. "Old man does what old man wants," she said. "Don't stare too long." Clara became my field training officer. Mid-50s, short gray hair, eyes that had seen too much. She'd been at Crater Lake 23 years. On our first joint patrol, we hiked down to Cleetwood Cove. She pointed out the spots where hikers had gone missing over the decades, always near dusk, always near the water. "They say the lake remembers," she told me. "Everything that falls in, everything that looks too long, keeps what it takes." I asked if she believed it. She didn't answer right away, just kept walking. Then she said, "I believe in what I've seen, and I've seen enough to follow the rules." I still thought it was superstition. City cop habit, evidence, facts, things you can prove in court. But the odd details piled up fast. Rangers avoided the rim after sunset without saying why. Trail cams sometimes caught shapes moving on Wizard Island when no one was supposed to be there. And the old man, every time I looked, it seemed closer to shore than it should be, like it was drifting on purpose. Clara never pushed. She just dropped hints. One evening, as the sun dropped behind the western rim and the water turned from blue to black, she stopped at Discovery Point and stared out. "The water remembers everything that's fallen in," she said quietly. "Don't give it your reflection. I came here to escape the violence of the city. But the lake has its own kind of violence, older and hungrier. I didn't know it yet, but Clara was trying to prepare me. She saw the grief still riding my shoulders, the way I flinched at sudden noises, the way I kept checking my empty holster like Mike was still beside me. She never asked about Portland. She just said, "This place doesn't care what you lost before. It only cares what you bring to it." I wanted to protect people here. That was the only redemption I could imagine. Keeping visitors safe so no one else had to stand at a bedside or knock on a door with bad news. I thought the lake would let me do that. I was wrong again. In my first week, they handed me the laminated card, the rules, and told me to memorize them before my first night shift. Clara waited until the end of my first full day on the rim. We were back at the ranger station in Rim Village, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the smell of coffee and pine clinging to everything. She pulled a small plastic sleeve from her desk drawer and slid it across the table like it was evidence in a case. Inside was a laminated card, edges worn soft from years of handling, the text faded but still sharp enough to read. Crater Lake Rim Protocols. it said at the top in block letters. No NPS logo. No official header. Just those words and a list below. Memorize this before your first night shift, she said. Don't photocopy it. Don't show it to visitors. And don't ignore it. I picked it up, half smiling. Looks like a ghost story checklist. She didn't smile back. These aren't NPS guidelines. They're survival instructions written in blood by rangers who didn't listen. There were 6 rules, typed in plain font, no embellishment. Never look directly at the water after sunset. The lake doesn't reflect your face. It shows what it wants to take. Do not whistle or call out names near the rim at night. Sound carries farther than you think, and something always answers. If the old man log drifts toward your position, leave the area immediately. Do not wait to see how close it gets. Report any unexplained lights, ghost fires, on Wizard Island, but never investigate alone. Never go out after dark to check. If you hear chanting or voices rising from underwater, seal your ears and radio for a medicine blessing from the Klamath Elder on call. Do not try to record it. If your reflection in the water appears to move independently, turn away and do not look back until you are at least a mile from the rim. I read them twice, then looked up at her. Come on, Clara. This is folklore. Klamath legends mixed with ranger hazing. She leaned against the desk, arms crossed. You think I wrote these for fun? Back in '04, we had a season named Paul Kendrick. Good kid, fresh out of college, thought the same thing you do. He was on graveyard patrol at Watchman Overlook. Broke Rule 1. Stood at the rail after sunset, staring down because he wanted a better photo for his girlfriend. Clara paused, her voice dropping. We found his camera the next morning, lens cap off, last frame a close-up of the water. His reflection was in it, but he was smiling in the picture, and Paul never smiled like that. Why, too many teeth. We searched for 6 days. Never found a body. Just his boots, side by side at the edge, laces tied, like he stepped out of them and kept walking. She tapped the card. Paul laughed at the rules too, right up until he didn't. I felt a prickle along my neck, but I pushed it down. City habit, evidence over stories. Still, the card stayed in my pocket the rest of the shift. I told myself it was just paper, a joke. But when I got back to my quarters that night, I read the rules again under the lamp. Rule 1 stuck the hardest. Never look after sunset. The lake doesn't reflect your face. It shows what it wants to take. I laughed it off at first, but on my 3rd night patrol, the first violation happened, and it wasn't me who paid the price. The first few weeks were quiet in the way only Crater Lake can be quiet. Wind through the pines, the occasional raven call, tourists asking the same questions about the deepest point and the water's color. I did my patrols, checked trail registers, and handed out maps. Nothing felt wrong yet, but the oddities started small, easy to wave away if you wanted to. On my 2nd week, Clara and I were at the Sinat Overlook around mid-afternoon. No wind, flat calm. The lake is like glass. Then ripples appeared in the center, spreading outward in perfect circles, as if something had dropped straight down from above. No boats out there, no birds diving. I lifted binoculars. The old man log sat motionless 50 yards away, but the ripples passed right under it without moving it an inch. Clara lowered her own binoculars slowly. Happens sometimes, she said. The lake breathes. I asked what she meant. She just shrugged. Means something stirring below. Don't stare. I chalked it up to underwater currents or temperature shifts. Science had answers for everything. A few days later, we got a report from a family at the lodge. Their teenage daughter swore she'd seen eyes in the blue while taking selfies at the rim. Said they weren't her reflection, too far down, too steady, watching her back. The parents laughed it off as imagination, but the girl wouldn't go near the railing again. I pulled the trail cam footage from that spot. Nothing unusual, just her standing there, phone raised, then lowering it fast and walking away. No eyes. No shadows. Still, she left the park early. I told myself the kids spoke easy. I'd seen worse in the city. Then came the missing hiker call. Routine, or so I thought. A man in his late 40s, David Ellison, solo day hike from Garfield Peak Trailhead. Didn't return to his car by dusk. We mobilized search teams at first light. Clara and I took the rim section near Phantom Ship Overlook. Found his day pack tucked against a boulder, water bottle clipped, granola bar half-eaten on top like he'd set it down for a second. No signs of struggle. No tracks leading away, ground too rocky. Just his prints walking straight to the edge and stopping, like he'd stepped off. We found his camera in the pack. Last photo timestamped 7:42 p.m., right at sunset. The frame showed the water zoomed in tight on his own reflection. But the face in the water wasn't his. Same build, same jacket, but the eyes were wrong. Too wide, too dark, mouth open in a silent laugh. I stared at the screen until Clara gently took the camera away. "Don't look too long," she said. "It remembers." The search went on for days. Divers swept the shallows. Nothing. Official conclusion. Slipped, fell, drowned. Hypothermia possible, disorientation. I nodded along in the debrief, but the photo stayed in my head. I told myself it was a trick of light, exposure error, anything rational. I'd seen bodies pulled from rivers in Portland. I knew what drowning looked like. This wasn't that. That night I dreamed I was standing at the rim again. Water black as oil. My reflection stared up, but it was Mike's face. My old partner, mouth moving, no sound. I woke up sweating, heart hammering. Told myself it was grief leaking through. Nothing more. Clara caught me at the coffee pot the next morning. She didn't ask how I slept. Just said, "The Klamath tells a story about Leo, spirit of the underworld. Fought a war with Skell, the sky god, right here. Leo lost, got trapped under the lake. But he's patient. He waits for someone to look too long to offer a reflection. Then he pulls them down to keep him company." I snorted. "So the lake's a prison for an angry god?" She looked at me steadily. "It's a prison for whatever fell in and never came out. Leo just wants release. And every time someone stares after dark, he gets a little closer." I still didn't buy it. Hypothermia. Accident. Bad photo. Coincidence. I told myself it was a coincidence. The lake proved me wrong the next full moon. That's when the encounters got personal, starting with the night my partner and I heard the chanting from below. Winter came early that year. Snow dusted the rim by mid-October, and the wind off the lake cut through every layer like it knew exactly where to find skin. Clara and I drew the storm patrol one Friday night, high winds, zero visibility, The kind of weather that turns a routine check into a survival exercise. We were supposed to sweep the North Rim from Watchman to North Junction, make sure no stranded hikers were out there freezing. Radio chatter was thin. Most visitors had cleared out days earlier. Just us, the Jeep's heater fighting a losing battle, and the lake below, black and restless under the clouds. Halfway through the loop, near the Devil's Backbone trailhead, the storm hit full force. Whiteout conditions in minutes. Clara killed the engine so we could listen for calls. That's when she disappeared. 1 second she was beside me, a flashlight beam cutting through the snow. The next she was gone. No sound, no tracks, just an empty space where she'd been standing. I shouted her name into the wind. Nothing. Heart slamming, I swept the beam in circles. The snow swallowed the light after 10 feet. I keyed the radio, voice steady by force of habit.
Clara, come in.
Clara? Static. I moved toward where she'd been, boots sinking deep. Then I saw her 20 yards downslope, crouched at the rim, staring straight down. She wasn't moving. I scrambled to her, grabbed her shoulder. She jolted like I'd shocked her. Her face was pale, eyes wide. "Something pulled at my shadow," she whispered. I felt it grab, like fingers under the snow. I looked down. Her shadow stretched long across the rim in the flashlight beam. But for a split second it looked wrong, elongated, reaching toward the water on its own. Then the wind shifted, and it snapped back to normal. She stood, shaking. "We're done here. Back to the Jeep. Now." We didn't speak on the drive back. She kept glancing at the side mirror like she expected something to follow. When we got to the station, she poured coffee with hands that wouldn't stop trembling. "It's never touched me before," she said finally. "Not like that." I asked what she meant. She just shook her head. "The lake tests you. First it watches, then it reaches, then it takes." I wanted to argue optical illusion, panic in the storm, adrenaline, but the words stuck. I'd seen her face. She wasn't making it up. The next week, the hauntings turned personal. I was alone on a late afternoon check at Cleetwood Cove, the trail down to the boat dock. Sun low, water still bright blue but starting to darken at the edges. I stopped at the water's edge to radio in. Routine. Then I saw it, my reflection on the surface. Clear as a mirror. But the face looking up wasn't mine. It was Mike's. Same crooked smile he'd had when we finished a shift. Same tired eyes. Only his mouth was open, water pouring in, bubbling like he was drowning all over again. I jerked back so fast I almost fell. Heart in my throat. I looked again. Just me. Shaking. Sweating despite the cold. That night I dreamed of him again. Standing at the rim, calling my name from below. The water rose around his legs, black and thick, pulling him down. I reached for him. My hand went through his smoke. I woke up gasping, sheet soaked. The grief I'd buried in Portland clawed its way back up. Mike's death wasn't just a bad call anymore. It felt unfinished. Like the lake had reached across states and years to remind me I hadn't saved him. I hadn't saved anyone, really. A few days later, we got the call about missing tourists. 3 college friends from Eugene, supposed to camp at Mazama Village but never checked out. We found their tent intact, gear inside, campfire cold. No sign of struggle, just one set of footprints leading to the rim overlooks. Then nothing. We boated out to Wizard Island at first light, against protocol, but Clara insisted. If they went looking for the ghost fires, we need to know. We tied off at the dock, hiked the crater trail. Halfway up, Clara pointed. Lights flickering on the far side, pale blue, like underwater glow moving under the snow. Not flashlights, not campfires, ghost fires. We approached slowly. The lights vanished as we got close. Nothing left but trampled snow and a faint smell, like wet stone and something metallic.
No bodies. No gear.
Just the feeling of being watched from every direction. Clara stood still, listening. They're gone, she said. The lake took them. Back at the station, she opened up more. Told me the full Klamath story, not the tourist version. Leo, the underworld chief, trapped beneath after losing to Skell. The lake formed when the mountain collapsed on him, sealing him in. But he's not dead. He's waiting. The water is his prison and his window. Every time someone looks too long after dark, he sees a way out, a reflection to trade places with, a soul to drag down. The old man log? She said. That's his finger testing the surface. When it drifts close, he's reaching. I still tried to hold on to reason. Hypothermia, panic, bad decisions in the dark. But the cracks were showing. I caught myself avoiding the rim after sunset without thinking. I stopped leaning over the railings. I kept the laminated card in my pocket and read it when no one was looking. The rules weren't superstition anymore. They were the only reason we were still breathing. I couldn't deny it any longer. The lake was awake, and it wanted something from me. That's when the real crisis hit. The night everything broke open started with a routine radio call from the lodge desk. For college kids from California, 3 girls and 1 guy had checked in that afternoon, excited about the bluest water they'd ever seen. They'd asked the clerk about sunset views. She'd given the standard warning. Stay back from the rim after dark. No exceptions. They laughed, said they'd be careful. By 9 p.m., they still hadn't returned. Dispatch put out the call. Clara and I were already on the rim road, so we rolled straight to Discovery Point. Snow had stopped, but the wind was vicious, whipping across the caldera. We found their rental SUV parked crooked near the overlook, doors unlocked, phones and jackets left inside. Flashlight beams picked up footprints for sets, leading straight to the railing. Then nothing. The prints ended at the edge like they'd walked off into air. Clara's face went tight. They looked, she said, after dark. We heard it before we saw it. A low, wet sound rising from below, like breathing through water. Then voices, young, laughing at first, then panicked. One girl's scream cut off sharp. I leaned over the rail despite every instinct screaming not to. The water was black, moonless night reflecting nothing. Then it moved. A shadow rose, slow, deliberate, Leo-like, massive, arms of darkness spreading under the surface. The water rose like fingers, cold, black, reaching for her soul. One of the girls was still down there, clinging to a rock ledge 20 feet below, half submerged, eyes wide with terror. The shadow coiled around her legs, pulling. I broke every rule to save her. Roped off the railing, rappelled down without backup, flashlight clenched in my teeth. Clara shouted after me but stayed topside to radio for help. The cold hit like knives. Water lapped at my boots, then my knees. The girl, her name was Mia, was crying, fingers bleeding from a gripping stone. "It's pulling me," she gasped. "It wants my face." I reached her, hooked the rope around her waist, and started hauling us up. That's when the shadow touched me. Not physically, something colder, deeper. It whispered my name in Mike's voice, soft and forgiving, promising peace if I just let go. I looked down. My reflection stared back, but it was Mike again, drowning, reaching up for me. Guilt slammed through me like a wave. I hadn't saved him. I couldn't save anyone. Clara's voice cut through on the radio clip to my chest. "Elias, get out. Don't look." I tore my eyes away, pulled harder. Mia came up over the edge first. Clara dragged her to safety. I followed, collapsing on the snow, lungs burning. But the shadow wasn't finished. It surged, water exploding upward in a black spout, slamming into Clara. She went down hard, head cracking against rock. Blood on the snow. I crawled to her. She was conscious, barely. Her last words before she passed out. "The lake doesn't forgive skeptics." We got her to the clinic in the village. Concussion, cracked ribs, exposure. She'd live, but she wouldn't patrol for months. Mia was catatonic, eyes open, staring at nothing, mouth moving in silent words. Doctors called it a shock. I knew better. The lake had taken something from her mind. That night in my quarters, alone with the laminated card on the table, I broke. I cried for Mike, for the first time since Portland. Not just grief, anger at myself for running from it, for pretending the rules were jokes, for thinking I could outrun what I carried. The lake hadn't just shown me Mike's face. It showed me my failure, my refusal to accept that some things can't be explained with badges and reports. I pulled out the old Ranger notebook Clara had lent me weeks earlier. Notes from decades of patrols, handwritten Klamath phrases, sketches of corn pollen circles, chants for protection. I read them by lamplight. One line stood out. "To face what is below, you must offer what is within. Not blood, not sacrifice, acceptance." I had distant native ties. My grandmother on my mother's side had Klamath blood she never talked about. Ashamed after years in the city. I'd ignored that part of me, like I'd ignored Mike's warnings on that last call. I stood at the window, staring toward the rim even though it was miles away. The lake was out there, patient, waiting. I spoke the words aloud for the first time. A simple Klamath protection chant Clara had taught me once. Half remembered. My voice cracked, but I finished it. Then I sprinkled corn pollen from the small pouch Clara had slipped me days earlier along the windowsill. Not because I fully believed yet, because I couldn't afford not to. Realization settled heavily. I couldn't keep being the city cop who ran from ghosts. My duty here wasn't just enforcing park rules. It was bridging what I'd been trained to do with what the land demanded. Modern ranger work and ancient respect. My grief wasn't weakness. It was strength, the same pain that made me reach for Mia, the same guilt that finally made me listen. We survived that night, but the entity wasn't done. It was waiting for the next dark to finish what it started. The storm rolled in without warning 3 nights after Clara went down. No forecast had called for it, just a sudden drop in pressure, wind howling through the caldera like something alive. I was alone on the rim road near Discovery Point. Backup was hours out. Roads iced over, visibility zero. Radio static only. I should have stayed in the village. But the lake was calling. I could feel it in my chest, low, rhythmic, like a heartbeat under the water. I parked the Jeep at the overlook, killed the engine. Snow lashed sideways, stinging my face. The rim railing was barely visible, a black line against white. I stepped out, a flashlight beam swallowed by the dark. That's when the chanting started. Not loud, not close, rising from below, muffled by depth, but clear enough to make the hair stand on my neck. Multiple voices, overlapping, ancient syllables I didn't understand but recognized from Clara's notebook. The water glowed, faint blue lights pulsing under the surface, moving in slow circles like searchlights sweeping for prey. I walked to the edge, couldn't help it. The pull was physical now, a cold hand pressing between my shoulder blades. I looked down. The entity rose, slow, deliberate. Not a shadow anymore. A shape, massive, humanoid but wrong, limbs too long, joints bending backward, skin like oil over stone. Leo, or what was left of him after centuries trapped. Eyes like drowned moons stared up. Mouth opened in a silent scream that somehow carried sound. The chanting swelled. The water churned, waves climbing the caldera walls. Reaching, said my name, not out loud, inside my skull. Elias, come home. Mike's voice again, soft, forgiving. The same voice that had said, "See you tomorrow," before he went through that door. Grief hit like a punch. I staggered forward. One boot slipped over the edge. Rocks crumbled. I caught the railing, knuckles white. The entity rose higher, water cascading off its form, black tendrils snaking toward me. I felt them brush my legs. Cold, hungry, promising to take the pain away if I just let go. I remembered Clara's notebook, the chant, the corn pollen pouch in my pocket, the sage bundle she'd pressed into my hand before the ambulance took her. I pulled them out with shaking fingers. Sage first, struck a lighter, cupped it against the wind until smoke rose thin and bitter. I waved it in front of me, drawing a line in the air. The tendrils recoiled, hissing, then the chant. I spoke the words Clara had taught me, halting, clumsy Klamath phrases for protection and balance. My voice cracked against the storm, but I kept going. Louder, steadier. The entity paused. The chanting from below faltered. I reached for the polished badge on my chest, the one thing that still caught light. I held it up like a mirror, angled toward the water. The entity's gaze locked on its own reflection. For a second, nothing happened. Then it screamed. Not sound, but pressure in my head, like nails on bone. The reflected shape twisted, fighting itself. Tendrils lashed backward, pulling at its own form. The water boiled, lights flickering erratic. I felt the pull strengthen, my feet sliding toward the edge. I bit my lip hard enough to taste blood. Will, that was the offering. Not life, not sacrifice. Choice. I chose to stay. Chose to remember Mike not as failure but as the reason I kept fighting. Chose to honor the lake's rules, not out of fear, but respect. I stared into the depths one last time, not at the monster, but at myself. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid. I spoke the final line of the chant. The badge flared, reflected light hitting the entity's eyes. It shrieked again, from collapsing inward. The water surged one last time, black fingers reaching, then retreated. The lights died. The chanting stopped. Silence rushed in, broken only by wind and my ragged breathing. The lake smoothed, flat, calm, like nothing had happened. I collapsed against the railing, knees in snow, sage still smoldering in my fist. The storm eased. Snow fell softer now. I looked at the water.
No reflection.
No eyes, just black glass under moonlight. The rules didn't save me. Accepting them did. Dawn broke. The lake was still again. But I knew it was only sleeping. Dawn came slow and gray. The storm passed, leaving the rim coated in fresh powder that muffled every sound. I sat against the Jeep's tire for a long time, sage bundle cold in my hand, badge still warm from where I'd clutched it like a lifeline. The lake lay flat below, blue returning with the light, innocent as if nothing had happened. But I knew better. The entity hadn't died. It had retreated, slipped back into the depths to wait. That was all. Clara was stable by noon, stitches, 4 fluids, and a room in the clinic at headquarters. When I visited, she was already awake, propped up, looking at me like she'd seen the whole thing from above. "You did it," she said quietly. "You used the chant." I nodded, told her about the badge mirror, the pollen line, the choice I'd made. She reached over, squeezed my wrist. "The lake tested you. You passed." Her voice cracked on the last word. "We didn't talk about Mike. We didn't need to." She understood. The official report was simple. Unexplained lights on Wizard Island during storm patrol. Possible atmospheric phenomenon. No injuries to visitors. One ranger was treated for minor concussion. NPS brass accepted it without question. Weather events, low visibility, end of story. I didn't mention the shadow, the chanting, the way the water had risen like it was alive. Some things don't belong in paperwork. But privately, I honored what Clara had taught me. Every evening before shift, I sprinkled corn pollen along the windowsill of my quarters. I kept sage in my pack. I said the short protection chant under my breath when I passed the rim alone. Small acts, not magic, respect. In the months that followed, I started training the new rangers. Not the full Klamath lore, that wasn't my place, but the practical side. The laminated card became required reading. I walked them through the rules at orientation, no jokes, no eye-rolling. Showed them the worn edges of my own copy, told them about Paul Kendrick, about Mia, about the night Clara almost didn't come back. Most listened. A few laughed it off at first. I let them. They'd learn soon enough the way I had. The grief didn't vanish. It never does. But it changed shape. Nights I used to wake gasping, seeing Mike's face in every dark window. Now I woke with a quieter ache. The lake had mirrored my guilt back at me until I couldn't run from it anymore. In facing it, facing Leo, facing the pull, I'd finally let myself feel the loss without letting it drown me. Mike wasn't gone because I failed him. He was gone because the world is full of things we can't control. All we can do is choose how we carry the weight. I carried his memory the way I carried the rules. Not as punishment, but as purpose. Protecting visitors so no one else had to stand at a bedside or knock on a door with the worst news. That was redemption enough. I still patrol the rim every night. The rules are clearer now because I've seen what happens when they're ignored. I walk the same trails, check the same overlooks, flashlight sweeping the dark. Sometimes I stop at Discovery Point, stand at the railing, and look down. Not after sunset, never after sunset, but in the daylight the water is just water, deep, clear, beautiful. A reminder that balance exists between beauty and danger. The lake gives life, rain, fish, tourists wonder, and it takes. It always takes. The trick is never giving it more than it's owed. Crater Lake is sacred, and it's watching. But every full moon, when the water glows just a little too bright, I wonder. I still walk the rim every night. Flashlight in one hand, the laminated card in the other. The lake looks peaceful under starlight, deep blue turning silver. Wizard Island a dark silhouette floating like it's always been there. Tourists come and go, snapping photos, laughing at the legends they read online. They leave thinking they've seen everything. They haven't. They never look long enough. They never stay after dark. The entity retreated that night, but it didn't leave. I feel it sometimes, ripples when there's no wind. The old man drifting a little closer to shore than it should. Last month, a solo camper vanished near Cleetwood Cove. Tent empty, boots side by side at the water's edge. No tracks, no body. Search teams called it off after 3 days. Official line, accident. I know better. Something stirred deeper. Something that remembers my name. I keep training the new rangers. I make them read the rules aloud. I tell them about Clara, about Mia, about the night the water rose. Some listen. Some roll their eyes. They'll learn. The lake teaches patience. If you're planning a trip to Crater Lake, remember, never look at the water after dark. The rules are clear. Stay on the trails. Leave before sunset. Don't whistle. Don't call out names. And if you hear your name whispered from below, don't answer. The lake is beautiful. It's sacred. It's watching. Subscribe if you want more stories from the places most people never stay after dark. Share your own experiences in the comments. What have you seen near water at night? What rules do you follow? Because out here, rules aren't suggestions. They're the only thing keeping you from becoming part of the reflection. I'll see you on the next patrol. Stay safe and stay away from the edge.